decarceration, handcuff the police, and no longer hold criminals accountable for their actions. And this is when you see streets and communities become blighted and descend into chaos, and that's what you're seeing.
Nick Wilson is a former police officer that retired after 13 years of service due to injuries sustained in the line of duty. He has dedicated his life to public service. Nick founded the Resiliency Project, a nonprofit organization that focuses on first responder mental health and suicide prevention. Additionally, he is the CEO of a public safety training and consulting company where he works to enhance the mission and operations of the law enforcement community. As an instructor, he draws on his experience and expertise to train law enforcement personnel across the state and country. Being born and raised in California, Mr. Wilson pursues the goal to fix this beautiful state of California and is currently running for state assembly in District 53. He is deeply concerned about the public safety, homelessness, cost of living, and parental rights in California. Nick Wilson is a man of God, loving husband and father. Welcome to the show once again.
Thank you very much, Apollo. I appreciate it.
So the first time we talked, and just like I said during the podcast, I just had an opportunity to ask you one question when we just had a 2-hour conversation, right?
Yeah.
So you're running for District 53, right?
Yeah.
What are the, what's the county? How many cities and towns do you
So
have?
it's 2 counties. It's Pomona, which is the LA County part of it, and it's Chino, Ontario, Montclair, and Upland.
So Pomona, you just showed me a video from Pomona, right? How is it freaking possible? Who's responsible for it? Because it looks like living hell.
Yeah, it's the responsibility of the state and the legislature to be able to provide tools to law enforcement to keep communities safe. And unfortunately, what you saw in that video is the end result of politicians who have really made public safety a criminal justice experiment that has failed in epic proportions. And so law enforcement can't do their job if they don't have the tools that are given to them by the legislature. This means laws that allow law enforcement to investigate criminals, to thwart criminal behavior, to investigate crimes, and to protect crime victims. And what we saw in that video and what our police officers are experiencing every day is the inability for them to fully do their jobs to keep communities safe because the legislature believes in pandering to criminals and to create communities that are no longer safe. So in that video, you saw homeless people that are pitching tents on sidewalks. You are seeing prostitution. And if you remember, they just legalized the solicitation of prostitution under 647B of the Penal Code. And so what that means is that prostitutes can solicit for sex on the street. And so this creates a real serious public safety nightmare because along with prostitution comes drugs and violence, and you also have sex workers that are being sexually assaulted. Mm-hmm. And so what they're doing is they're creating an emergency, and this is unfortunately the end result of politicians that are putting their own special interests first, and they're not serving their constituents. And it's not because they're dumb.
Of course they're not.
Right? This is an intentional breakdown of society. And so we have a lot of work to do. And when this started happening when I was a police officer, the Prop 47 was passed under a false notion of, safe schools, safe streets. It was actually the opposite. And so I'll never forget when we used to be able to arrest people for serious offenses, narcotic offenses, weapon offenses, theft. It turned into misdemeanors, and we were forced to cite and release people after committing what used to be felonies.
So what's the point of arresting those people? How did you feel being a police officer? You just arrest the guy and you know that he's going to walk away in 15 minutes?
Yeah, pretty much. And it's a very demoralizing thing because police officers, you know, they have, you know, they're a special breed. Police officers risk their lives every single day to protect communities and, you know, an entire communities of complete strangers. And when you're putting your life on the line every single day to do that, just to walk criminals out the back door, it's demoralizing.
It's useless job. You feel useless, right?
Yeah, because you can't solve the problems, right? You know, there's community-oriented policing and problem-oriented policing are different philosophies in how to manage crime. And so when you...
Excel on both of them.
Well, community-oriented policing and problem-solving has been around since the 80s, right? And San Diego Police Department really developed the concept of that, which is community engagement and how to enhance community relations between law enforcement and the community. And there's a variety of things that go into community-oriented policing and problem-solving. Problem-oriented policing, or POP projects, they used to be called, is when you identify an issue in the community, whether it is prostitution or gang activity in certain areas, you come up with different strategies on how to fix that. And part of that is gathering intelligence and putting investigations together and effecting arrests and removing those people from the street. So they can't do that anymore. If they can't arrest people for certain crimes like solicitation for prostitution, or if sentencing guidelines have turned into a slap on the hand and probation with no accountability, well, then it's useless and they're right back in the same environment committing the same crimes, right? They've gone away with gang enhancements. They've gone away under 186.22 of the Penal Code. We used to be able to charge gang members who were committing certain crimes at the benefit of and for the direction of criminal street gangs. And so what that meant was that those sentencing guidelines under charging people for 186.22, it increased and added years on sentencing for violent offenses. Can't do that anymore. You know, because the criminal justice system, when they talk about reimagining public safety, or when they talk about criminal justice reform, what they're really saying is decarceration, handcuff the police, and no longer hold criminals accountable for their actions. And this is when you see streets and communities become blighted and descend into chaos. And that's what you're seeing. I mean, all you have to do is look at LA and, you know, when you're walking through LA, certain parts of it, it looks like a third world country.
It does.
And so in Pomona, when you look at Holt Avenue, there are so many problems that could be fixed instantaneously if we give law enforcement the tools that they need. But we have got to get back to supporting law enforcement and making public safety a priority, and the same with crime victims, because crime victims aren't getting justice. If you look at DA Gascon, who's a Soros-funded DA, who has been solely responsible for dismantling public safety in LA County, which extends to Pomona, to me, it's criminal because they're not adhering to the oath that they took when they entered into office. They're supposed to protect the Constitution, not dismantle it. They're supposed to be advocating for and protecting crime victims. They're not. And law enforcement is struggling right now significantly because it's not just the laws that give them the tools for them to be able to do their job. The politicians in Sacramento have pointed their finger at law enforcement to say, it's actually you guys. You are the problem. You're the problem. It's not the criminals, right?
It's gaslighting.
It is gaslighting. It's so many things, right? But what they're doing is, unfortunately, when you make it so that police officers now not only not be able to do their jobs, but then you create and pass legislation that further handcuffs the law enforcement, like SB 2, which is the decertification of law enforcement officers. It creates an environment where police officers, in many cases, are afraid to do their jobs. And people have to understand that this is a very real and very serious consequence of reckless legislation. We all agree that there are police officers that, there are some that should not be police officers, but that's like so few and far between. They have, and when I say they, I mean Sacramento politicians, they have created this narrative that law enforcement is systemically racist, law enforcement is responsible for society's ills, and therefore what we have to do is put them in a box and just let people be on the street without any consequence. SB 2, this decertification of law enforcement, created an environment where now people can make anonymous complaints against a law enforcement officer, and there's approximately between 7 and 9 things that can trigger law enforcement officers to become decertified. And so
anonymously. So basically, I can lie.
Right, and under SB 2, there's a governing body, right, that makes recommendations to post, which is Peace Officer Standards and Training. They're the regulatory body that oversees law enforcement. The other governing body that makes the recommendations to post as to whether or not to decertify are what they call formerly incarcerated individuals. So these are people who have been through the criminal justice system, right? Prior felons that are not fans of law enforcement that are going, hey, decertify these people, right? I mean, so it's
ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, everything is so upside down, and people are so afraid to just speak truth and just say, because everyone is afraid of being coined a racist. Everyone everyone is afraid of being coined an extremist, right? Because the narrative is, if you are not for criminal justice reform, well, then you're a racist. I just don't subscribe to that, and I think that most people don't subscribe to that. But I think we're at that point where we have to call things out for what they are. And it's lunacy. It's dereliction of duty. And if we don't get a handle on this, if we think that what we've seen in just the last few years is bad, it's going to get much worse. And as a result of law enforcement officers not being able to do their jobs, or, all the public scrutiny that's being fueled by these false narratives because of the politicians. I can't tell you how many police officers right now are quitting, or they're retiring early, or they're lateraling out of state and going to other agencies, and they're moving with their families because the cost of living is too high. And let's just be honest. Who would want to put on a badge and a uniform every single day, go out and protect a complete society of total strangers, put your life at risk every single day, just to be slapped in the face by politicians who knowingly and without question are responsible for decriminalizing crime. And that's what they're doing. They have made crime legal, and they have made law enforcement the enemy. And it's very sad.
So you took this video in Pomona a few days ago without any special preparation. You just drove there?
Yeah.
Took out your phone and just filmed?
Yeah, I just drove around for about 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And just in 20 and 30 minutes, what you see are homeless people that are laying on the ground. You see tents on sidewalks.
Drug addicts,
you see drug addicts, and you see prostitutes getting into
sex workers.
Yeah, because if you say prostitutes, right, you might offend somebody.
A bigot, a misogynist, and etc.
Right.
How to raise children in that environment?
I mean, and that's such a good point, because
maybe you should just buy a Cybertruck.
Maybe that'll solve it, right? The reality is that we know that, fatherless homes, and this is a crazy thing, right? Like we have to just call things for what they are. But fatherless homes is one of the things that creates. It's one of the factors that goes into juvenile crime causation, right? So when you don't have a father in a home, that's a contributing factor to kids that turn to gangs because they're looking for external validation in all the wrong places. How do you raise children in an environment where you have drug addicts, drug dealers, prostitutes, homeless people, gang members walking up and down the sidewalk? It's really tragic. And I saw countless children out in the streets holding their mother's hands, trying to either go to the ATM or walking around these homeless encampments, trying to get to wherever they're going. And it's so unfair to the children. It's so unfair to families who are just trying to make it every day. My heart breaks for them. And I think that if ever there was a time to get involved and start speaking your mind or let your voices be heard through voting, it's right now.
How to explain a child, a 5-year-old, for instance, just like mine? What is that? Who are those sex workers? Why do they look like that? What are they doing? What about the tents? Why there are so many drug addicts? How to explain those things to the little children?
Now, I think a lot of parents right now are having to have very hard conversations with their children that they weren't prepared to have, right? I mean, it's the same with me. I mean, I'm having to, because of what's going on in the schools and or what you're seeing in the street, parents are being forced right now to actually have these hard conversations with their children so that they understand what they're seeing. Because as parents, we have to teach our children, right? And we have to lead them and guide them and prepare them for their futures.
And they're asking a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Like, what is that? Why is that? Who is that? What is that?
Right. And I mean, I'll never forget a male that thought he was a female and dressed in the whole getup. And my son knew it was a male. And I had to explain it to him when he said, "Papa, what is that?" And I'm looking at my wife going, "How do I answer this?" But this is what parents are facing now, whether it's the schools or the streets. We have communities in crisis, and California is in crisis, and this is not. They say, well, we have to be tolerant and tolerate these things and be accepting and compassionate. But while it's important to be compassionate, it doesn't mean we forfeit the truth and that we forfeit our values. Mm-hmm. And that we just create a system of chaos to appease every single subgroup within a culture that, while very diverse and diversity is good, it's not to the extent to which we start pretending or lying about, what is real. So, we have an opportunity to repeal Prop 47 through Prop 36. Right. And so right now that is on the ballot and we have to repeal it. And public support and sentiment for the repeal of Prop 47 is extremely strong. But we have to take it we have to go way further than just repealing Prop 47 through Prop 36. There's a lot of things that have to happen.
Who can do that, the repeal?
Well, so voters are going to decide as to whether or not, just like the measures on the ballot for Prop 47 to pass it, it's going to be the same to repeal it. So voters get to decide that. But the legislature is responsible for creating laws. And right now, the supermajority of Democrats who have created the public safety nightmare are the supermajority. And so we need more people like myself and others to be elected so that we can actually effectuate change, so that we have balance in Sacramento, not a supermajority of radical progressives who continue to destroy communities. They're destroying California. without question, they're destroying California. And it's whether it's the cost of living. I mean, they've bankrupted the 5th largest economy in the world, right? They are taking schools and they're not teaching kids or preparing them for their future. They're so focused on ideological transgender nonsense, and it is nonsense. It's absolute nonsense.
So I have a hard time every time I have to explain to my fellow Lithuanians, like they're asking me, they know that I have a huge following in Lithuania. They're always asking me those questions, like, what's going on in the US? Like, what's going on in California? I was like, what do you mean? And they're showing me the videos just like you showed me in Pomona, but in Los Angeles, other counties, other cities, and was like, I feel hard time just explaining what is happening in the US. And they're always asking, is it going to come to Europe and is it going to come to Lithuania? I was like, yes, just wait for 5 years. If nothing changes here in the US, it's going to come to Europe and to the Lithuania.
Yeah, I mean, look at the UK right now, right?
That's a mess.
It's, I mean, and that's, I mean, there are like legitimate countries right now that are being completely destroyed. And I'd say some of them, they've fallen. And that's going to happen in California. I think we're on the verge of that happening now, because when up is down and down is up, and this fast-moving train continues to speed ahead, this is a recipe for disaster.
So you want to tell me that you have enough really not very clever people just to vote the same people in once again in November? They like what they're seeing?
I don't think, and I don't think that they like what they're seeing. I think it's a combination of a lot of things. I think that people are so checked out and apathetic when it comes to voting. I think that people are so brainwashed and influenced by the media. I think that another large faction of people are so unaware of what's going on because they're so hyper-focused with their own life and just getting by, and working 2 to 3 jobs and try to keep the lights on and their families fed.
But aren't they curious? Who are those sex workers on the streets in the daylight?
I mean, you would think, right? You would think that people have an interest as to what's going on around them, but I don't think that a lot of people understand, because they're so focused on presidential elections, right? That they don't think or even understand what a state assembly member does. And what we have to get them to understand is that's the most important election.
It's even more important.
It is, because you have to look at every state is like its own country.
Yes.
Right? And people don't realize that we are sovereign states. And the Constitution was written so that, your state representatives, the governor is almost, it's like the president of California, right? And so the people that are writing legislation that impact your day-to-day life, taxes, public safety, the homeless crisis, which they've exasperated, what's going on in the schools, removing local control, making it so that businesses can't operate in this very unfriendly business state. It's your state legislature that does those things. So if we want change, stop looking at the presidential election and start paying attention to local politics, your state politics, and get rid of these supermajority of Democrats. They're not Democrats. These aren't your Kennedy Democrats that I grew up with. These are radical progressives that hate America. That's what they are. And we have got to be able to coin that for what it is, to understand that. Sun Tzu, Art of War. Know thy enemy and you will win all wars. We have to know what these people really are. They have no reverence for the Constitution whatsoever. In fact, there's articles right now that are coming out where it talks about how dangerous the Constitution is.
To who?
To all of us. It's a threat to what they call democracy. And what they have to remember is, the founding fathers didn't want us to live in a democracy. We don't live in a democracy. We live in a constitutional republic, right? And so these people are fascists, they're Marxists, they're communists. They don't like America. They want to see the principles and the they want to see the entire infrastructure of our country implode. Because, you know, the number one role of government is to protect the rights of individual citizens and to keep them safe. The very principal foundation of government is to make sure that we're safe. And we're not safe right now between the public safety crisis, the amount of prison closures and inmates being released, to a border invasion, right, where we have people that are coming through our southern border unregulated, unchecked, and what is, you know, treasonous. I believe it's absolutely treasonous what's happening. They're not doing their jobs. They're not keeping us safe. And, you know, people think, you know, they coined the term, just like they do, you know, reimagining public safety and criminal justice reform. They go, we need comprehensive immigration reform. What does that even mean? What is comprehensive immigration reform mean, right? To them, to the Democrats, it means just open the doors and let them in. Because how dare we not do that? How dare we not allow anyone just come through the border for a better life? Because we have to be well, if you don't have borders, you have no country. That's it. And I think that the damage is done. All we can do now is plug holes. The damage, I mean, how many terrorists have we let into the country through our southern border? And according to the FBI, it's like, you know, what did he say? Between 50 to 100 that we know of. I call BS.
It takes one.
Yeah, it takes one, and we've already let them in. And what are they doing? They are responsible for sexual assaults against Americans. They have raped Americans. They have molested children. That is happening. Why don't we hear about it all over the media? Because they're not allowed to talk about it because we're a sanctuary state. I mean, this defies logic. This defies reason. This defies truth. This defies anything that is rational or sane. And, you know, just like we're, you know, initially we didn't see the impact of what was going on with the border invasion. We are now. Mm-hmm. You know, how many billions of dollars are being spent right now to help or sustain the influx of illegal immigrants? What's the public safety impact in our communities up and down the state of California and around the country? You know, the politicians that have let this happen have abandoned their oath. They have abandoned their responsibilities to serve, to protect. They've abandoned their constituents. They've abandoned our country. They should be resigning in disgrace and issuing the biggest public apology ever. There's no recourse other than resigning in disgrace and publicly apologizing. And then we have to figure out what we're going to actually do to actually, you know, deal with this crisis. But it's a crisis.
So I would say local elections are even more important because I live in LA County, right? So LA County is a mess. But at the same time, we have Orange County. No, we've been looking for apartments for 2 weeks in a row. We've been to Irvine, Newport, Costa Mesa. No homeless at all. No
Right.
junkies, no homeless, no sex workers.
Relatively low.
So it's
yeah.
possible, right? So it's possible.
Sure.
You live right next to another county where it is possible to have public safety.
Right.
So you just have to implement everything that they do in Orange County.
Yeah, I mean, because the DA in Orange County cares about public safety. And so
How dare he?
Yeah, how dare you, right? How it's so inequitable, right? But that's because the DA in Orange County, just like the DA in Riverside and the DA, you know, in San Bernardino, they hold criminals accountable, and they do as much as they can within the confines of the law, right? But you have to remember the sentencing guidelines have changed, right? The ability for judges to sentence people has changed. Everything has changed. So there's only so much that even they can do. But you do see a difference when you're driving through the communities of LA versus the communities in Irvine or other Orange County cities. Local control is the most important thing. And the thing is Sacramento right now is hell-bent on removing local control. And we saw that with the passage of AB 1955 in schools, right? And you're seeing that more and more often. Right now there's a war brewing between local governments and the state. And that's because they have no reverence for the rule of law, and because they are continuing to do what they can to remove local control so that they have the ultimate say-so. But government doesn't function that way. And we need cities to start standing up and saying, absolutely not, we're not going to go along with this. And we need people to sue Newsom and the corrupted Rob Bonta and continue to hammer them with lawsuits, which is just a further demonstration that we've lost our rights. Because when you, like we've talked about before, when you have to sue the state in order to get your rights back, well, then we know we've already lost them. We've lost them.
So November 6th, you get elected. When you take office? January?
Yeah, so November 5th is, that's election day. And then I believe it would be January is when I would be sworn in. And that's
number
when
one priority for you once you get to the office.
It's public safety and it's parental rights.
How? Do you just greenlight police officers?
Yeah, I mean, what we have to do is be creative. Well, number one, it's killing the bad bills, and it's doing everything you can within your power to be able to kill as many bad bills as possible. One, two. I think that there's so many bills that we have to slow this machine. We shouldn't be in the business of
printing.
Yeah, there should be a cap on how many bills are being passed in the legislature every year. There's so many that people can't even keep track of it.
How many a year? Give me an approximate number.
There's thousands. There's thousands of bills that are being passed every single year.
Just in California?
Just in California.
So you want to tell me, so the country is 250 years old approximately, right? And they pass those new bills every single day. So it means that the other bills were so bad?
Yeah, I'm gonna show you something. And that's look, in Texas, the legislature meets every 3 years, right? And so they don't have this problem. I want you to really think about how bad this is for a second. I want you to, just for your viewers to understand where we're at in Sacramento and in California, right? You've got the cities up and down California right now that are struggling. You saw the video of, that's just Pomona, and that's just within a 20 to 30 minute time frame, right? You've got families that aren't able to put food on the table. You've got people working 2 and 3 jobs. You have people who can't buy homes. You have people who can't retire in the state. You've got a homelessness crisis right now that is being created and fueled by the government because they've spent over $20 billion. No one knows where the money went, but it certainly didn't go to homeless, right? You got all these things going on. And this year, the legislature introduced AB 1850. And you know what that one was for? The bill title is State Slug. So they spent time, energy, money to be able to properly name the California State Slug. And they're going to call it the Banana Slug for the Banana Republic, We're in a banana republic. But I mean it. This is the legislation. A slug.
There's no way.
Yeah, that's really happening. And
why?
Because this is what they're focused on. They're worried about slugs, bugs, and seashells. California is burning to the ground, and this is where our tax dollars are going right now. It's to be able to properly name
a banana slug.
The banana slug.
Can you feel it? Your life just has changed.
Yeah.
Drastically, in a good way.
I mean,
I feel so much better now.
The Section 1 says that the legislature hereby finds and declares all of the following. California is its own floristic province due to the tremendous amount of endemic plant species present in the state, indicative of a unique evolutionary history. Banana slugs are an example of the rapid evolution that has made California extremely biologically diverse.
What about those species in Pomona in daylight? Sex workers.
Right. And are they doing anything to protect the community or the actual sex workers? They're doing nothing. But they're hammering law enforcement. They're removing local control. They're creating this impossible, complex catastrophe when it comes to solving crimes, holding criminals accountable for their actions, advocating for crime victims, removing local controls from school boards up and down the state that don't want some hellacious curriculum when more than half the students aren't able to pass, read, write, do math, get prepared for their future. We have environmental laws upon environmental laws upon environmental laws that is restricting the ability for businesses to flourish and to thrive. We are supposed to be the 5th largest economy in the world. We keep saying that, but right now we're in a deficit. They took a surplus, and in 24 hours it reveals we're in a deficit. But we're worried about banana slugs.
California should be like Dubai.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of money.
Right. And it's not that
it's almost like Dubai, right? Almost.
I know what you're saying, right? But it's not that we don't have the opportunity to thrive, to grow, to be prosperous. It's the bureaucratic red tape. It is the overregulation. We live in a litigious state where there's a lawsuit every 5 minutes. Who wants to do business? Who wants to do business here? If you're going to be sued for everything under the sun, they make money off of crisis that they create. And that's not fair to the constituents. It's genius and it's criminal because they're profiting and the people are hurting. It's as simple as that.
So public safety by killing the bad bills. What's next? Your priorities.
So public safety really is, we have to be safe, right? And so we need tougher sentencing guidelines, right? We need to stop the perpetual revolving door with criminals, and we need them to be held accountable, period. Crime victims advocated for. I said parental rights. We have got to repeal AB 1955, right? We have to give local control back to local governments and stop the insanity. We need to get, as an example, how much money has been spent on putting tampon dispensers in boys' bathrooms in elementary school? What kind of world are we living in? Really? How much money was spent on that? Right? There's a fiscal impact attached to every single bad decision in Sacramento.
How am I supposed to explain tampon dispensers in a boys' bathroom to my fellow Lithuanian conservatives?
I don't know if you can, because it makes no sense.
I just turned red.
And you don't even have to be conservative. It's about this is about what is, it's hard to even talk about, isn't it?
My grandma is calling me and she's like, is it true that you do this and that in California? I was like, yes. Why? I have no explanation. I can't.
Right.
And she's saying to me, so this is your dream country? You always dreamed of living in the US and you have this? Yes. Why?
Right. And the cost of living. The amount of money right now that is being spent on all these environmental laws, right, is... we're in the billions of dollars. That needs to be cut by 50%. Because say what you want. All right, I've been hearing about global warming and,
I've seen the mess that illegals leave.
You saw it in San Diego.
Yes.
When you were with Corey.
Yes.
It's horrible, isn't it?
But don't you dare to use a plastic straw.
Yeah, don't use a plastic straw, but they're literally contaminating streams of water sources.
And right by the border, lots of just plastic and just trash.
Oh, yeah.
They throw everything away. They don't care.
Right. But you can't talk about that because we're talking about
Racist, misogynist, bigot, sexist.
Yeah, you can't do that, right? So that's where we are. And that's honestly, these are the tactics of communists. You know, and I forget who it is now, the name escapes me, but there was, I think it was a professor who was talking about the works of communists. I think it was in the 50s or the 60s when they talked about, I think it was the Communist Manifesto, where they're talking about what words to use to assign to people who basically don't go along with your program, and it's Nazi, fascists, really. And so we're seeing that right now. Those are just tactics to silence people and to instill fear, to shame people into silence. And we're America, and we need to start acting like Americans, and we need to put our foot down and say enough, because we're not going to be able to sustain this any longer. The other thing that we need to focus on is the cost of living. So I talked about the environmental stuff, the overregulation, it being a litigious state. We need the free market to work and rebalance itself. And that means cutting taxes. That means reducing the amount of bureaucratic red tape and allowing businesses to flourish. I just saw a video the other day of a farmer that takes her produce to farmers markets. And then you've got an Department of Agriculture coming in and fining the woman for not listing what produce she grew on her farm and then took and sold at a farmer's market. I mean, that's like totalitarianism right there.
That's bigotry.
Yeah, it's something like that, isn't it? But like that kind of regulation is horrible. I mean, we're taxing Americans growing produce that are not growing. We're fining Americans growing produce and selling the produce at some farmers markets, but we're allowing illegal immigration and like a mass import of illegal immigrants into the country, paying for them free healthcare, free this, free that. You want free healthcare, free sex operations, hormone treatment. Hey, inmates, I know that you've committed, X, Y, and Z heinous crimes, right? And you're behind, but you want a sex change operation? We'll give you that. You want some hormone treatment and some this, that, and the other? We'll give you that. All right. Meanwhile, we're going to just take a pause. We're not going to talk about the obvious and try to fix California. We're going to pass legislation to name the new state slug the banana slug. Right? So this is and it all you can do is laugh. Like I in my notes, like
it's a laugh through tears.
It absolutely is. Meanwhile, free speech is being threatened right now, and I mean, let's just be honest. Harris wants to continue to silence people
because it's a privilege to have a free speech, not a right.
Well, and that's the thing, right? Like the Constitution is very clear, and the First Amendment is very clear, and the First Amendment talks about like that Congress should make no laws that abridge or that prevent the freedom of speech under the First Amendment. We have right now boys, males that think that they're females, and they're playing in female sports and literally injuring them, right? Breaking their bones, their teeth. And it's like, well, where's all the people that were feminists, that were fighting and championing women's rights? Where are all those people? Where are all the people that really cared about doing the right thing? I don't know where they are. You've got now in the healthcare industry, you can be 14 years old and you have to be able, at 14, the healthcare industry now mandates that the child, and they are children, sign basically a medical release waiver giving their parents permission to be in the doctor's office with them. You're telling families in California that children at 14 years old are able to make decisions about their body, about their medical care without parental involvement, yet they're too young to buy cigarettes, to enlist in the military, to serve our country. To do a tattoo, right? All those things you need parental consent to do. But if you want an abortion or a sex change operation, that's okay. That's the message that we're sending. And that's what's now being permitted because we don't have enough people standing up like yourself, like so many people you and I know that are using their voices, their time, their energy to get engaged immediately in every aspect that they can to try to change these things. Because until enough people stand up and say no, like this is going to continue and just get worse.
So last Saturday I did a podcast with Rebecca Friedrichs. You know her? Rebecca for Kids? She's fighting with the teachers union.
Oh, yeah.
So she told me such horrible things. I was astonished, right? I was staggered. So yesterday my wife is talking to our neighbor, and she came from Ukraine, I want to say. She has a 2-month-old daughter, and her son is 4 years old. So she and her husband have 2 children. So my wife is telling her some stories about the drag queen story hours, about everything that's going on with the sex education. So Rebecca told me a story when in schools they do this thing. So when you're 5th grader, right? So you're 10, 11 years old, they get these 2 dildos on the table and they teach you how to get the condom on the dildo, etc. And my wife is telling those stories to our neighbor, and she's shocked. That's her first time she's hearing that stuff. So I believe there are lots of people that have never heard of that. They have no idea what are we talking about, like literally.
Yeah. So I think, my mind. I have seen things evolve into such denigration. Like I don't even believe sex ed should be taught in school. It needs to be taught at home. That it is so inappropriate. See, this is the thing. Our job was to thwart and to dismantle, to disrupt gangs, criminal enterprises, narcotic trafficking rings. And we had the tools then to be able to effectively do our job. We used to write search warrants after gleaning the right amount of intelligence from sources and surveillance, and develop enough probable cause where a judge would sign off on a search warrant. And weekly, we would be executing search warrants in an effort to make our community safer. Law enforcement now has to jump through an incredible amount of hoops just to be able to do their jobs. And if we want to know why there are so many issues in communities where you have problems in some of these homes that are just absolutely plagued and riddled with crime, it's attributable to the legislature who has continued to handcuff our law enforcement officers. The amount of resources that we were able to utilize when I was on the job to make communities safe was really incredible, and that's because with the proper tools, we could literally and we used to see the tangible results of executing a search warrant, right, and get code enforcement in to work with us and to resolve issues in individual communities. Right now, our cops just don't have the right resources. They don't have the tools. And you'll see assembly members, especially in this district in the last 12 years, we need to get law enforcement and public safety and first responders the right tools and resources to do their jobs. That's all hogwash. It means nothing because they've literally removed the tools and resources needed for them to do their jobs. So we need 3 strikes to be enforced. We need gang enhancements to come back. We need tougher sentencing guidelines. We need officers to have the capacity to use investigative tools and techniques in order to dismantle drug trafficking organizations, and gangs, and get them off the streets.
So now it's too much paperwork and bureaucracy that stands in the way of just getting, for instance, a search warrant?
It's that the tools that we had before are no longer there. We used to be able, like I said before, under 186.22 of the Penal Code, which were the gang enhancements and the databases that we were able to use. One of them was called Cal Gangs, right? And that was Cal Gangs was a database where gang investigators were able to figure out what gang members were in each city, if they've been contacted before, what agency they were contacted by, when, what they were wearing during the time of contact, did they have spray paint, did they have weapons, what other gang members were they with during the time of contact. That all went away. They can't use those databases anymore.
Why?
Well,
don't tell me it's too racist.
What people have to realize is that law enforcement officers don't target people based on their skin color. They respond to criminal behavior, right? It does nothing for law enforcement to investigate or stop people based on their skin color. That doesn't yield any results. It has nothing to do, their job has nothing to do with targeting people based on gender, based on race. And I guess my frustration really is that we have spent decades moving past the civil rights movement. Mm-hmm. And, there was so much progress after the civil rights movement. And for some reason, our politicians right now are making communities and our entire society hyper-focused on looking at life through the lens of race, through the lens of color, right? Why are we talking about race the way we are? It's gone now into the way that we hire people. DEI is an epic failure. I've been speaking out against DEI from the beginning because any business wants to hire the best. It doesn't matter what they look like. They want to hire the most capable, the most educated, even if they're not formally educated. You want people to be the best in their field, despite their gender, religion, how they look, and you want to bring them on to your company or your organization because they're going to advance the mission of your organization, which translates into making money.
Yeah.
Right now, do you want to be on an airplane with a DEI hire who might not have gotten the best training or the best at what they do, flying an airplane? I don't care what they look like. I want them to be the best damn pilot.
Yes.
I don't care what my doctor looks like whatsoever. I don't care who they worship. I want them to be the best doctor when they're operating on me. I don't want someone to not be, I don't want someone to be operating on me if they're a DEI. And so I'll tell you what's racist is DEI.
Yes.
It's racist. The exact thing that they're shoving down our throats to prevent racism, in fact, is racist, right? So where are we going? Right? In every institution, from banking and education to healthcare to public safety, every single institution, these pillars that basically form our society are being overrun by Marxist principles, by communist practices. And we're losing our country as a result. Nothing good can come from a border invasion. Nothing good can come from DEI. Nothing. And we've seen what the results are of these communist principles. No one can tell me I'm racist. I've spent my whole life investigating extremism and real white supremacy, right? Not this fake narrative where there's all these white supremacists all over the country and that that's the biggest threat to our country. It's not. It's a lie. And they're doing that to pander to votes.
When you were a police officer, or now, do they have some kind of a quotas to have, for instance, if you arrest 10 African Americans, 10 Latinos, you have to arrest at least 10 white dudes?
No, all quotas are illegal, right? You can't. You're not even allowed to have quotas when it comes to traffic citations. Police officers, you can't tell a police officer by the end of your shift, I want you to have a certain amount of traffic citations. That is illegal. And law enforcement, you don't need new laws for law enforcement to be able to do their jobs or to make sure that we're creating a system where there's no racism. Law enforcement officers have a code of ethics. Mm-hmm. They have an oath that they take when they enter the profession. And nothing you do can be based off of race or gender, creed, nothing. But what they've done is they've saturated law enforcement with this DEI stuff, and they've saturated the profession with this unconscious bias training, right? Which basically is, Apollo, thank you for joining the department. You don't know this yet, but you are unconsciously racist. You are subconsciously you're racist, right? Because and you don't know it yet, but we're going to teach you. We're going to train you how racist you really are, right? And so cops are going through this, going like, what am I doing? What do we? They don't make a lot of money, right? It's a very dangerous job. Who would want to literally put on a uniform, a badge, and go out every shift and not know if you're going to make it home by the end of the day? Yet we're telling officers that they are inherently racist, and you're going to go through all this training, okay? And if you don't subscribe to these narratives, then you're not going to have a job anymore. LAPD, so under Karen Bass, they made it a priority to hire and recruit reform-minded officers.
What is that?
I don't know. How do you recruit reform-minded officers? I want people to really think about that. What is a reform-minded? Does that mean you can't be conservative? Does that mean you can't be Christian? Does that mean that if you are off duty and you support Trump, that you're not going to be considered reform-minded? What is reform-minded? There are layers and layers to this, and if you want to know why, there are newer generations of law enforcement officers that are a different caliber than what we once had, it's because of the hiring practices, it's because of the DEI nonsense, it's because we've created an entire society that's hyper-focused on race and teaching people to look at life through the lens of color. And I thought we had moved past from that we are going to be judged based on the content of our character, not the color of our skin. And if that holds true, then where are we going now as a society where they're shoving things down our throats that are un-American, that are racist in themselves? These principles are racist, and everyone just going along with it like, we're celebrating diversity by doing. No, we're not celebrating diversity. We're going backwards, pre-civil rights, but see, this is what politicians do to divide people. And enough people now are waking up, and you're seeing it all around the country. People have had enough. They're looking at this going, you know what? There was a African-American woman the other day, and she was speaking in front of the Chicago, I think it was City Hall. And she was blasting them, saying, you're using us because of our skin color, and we've had enough. And she was really going on a tirade about Kamala Harris, who's done nothing. And when Kamala Harris was the Attorney General, she was an awful Attorney General. A friend of mine who died he had a heat stroke when he was on the SWAT team, and we had just done a search warrant a couple days before. Great guy. Went to his funeral. Kamala Harris was there, and she didn't even want to shake people. She didn't want to look at people. She didn't want to shake their hands, and she couldn't get out of there fast enough. That's when she was the attorney general. She hates law enforcement. She can't stand law enforcement. She is a representative example of everything wrong with the criminal justice system and everything wrong with factions of America that are hell-bent on destroying it. And we don't need any more Kamala Harrises, and we don't need any more Gascons. These are the self-admitted Marxist radicals. They don't hide it. I mean, Soros went on a whole tangent about open societies and George Soros and how, those things are good. They're not good. They're not good. And the founding fathers warned us about this. When asked what manner of government have you formed for us, it was a republic, if you can keep it. Right? We're on the border right now of not being able to keep a republic. And when people say, this is a threat to democracy.
It is.
It is a threat to democracy. It really is. These people are a threat to our republic.
But how can they explain to themselves even this thing? So former Democrats like Tulsi Gabbard and RFK joined the Republicans, and former warmonger Dick Cheney endorses Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
How can they explain it to their electorate?
Well, and I think that more and more people are waking up to the fact that we have been in a perpetual cycle of war, and that there are warmongers like Dick Cheney and Bush. We shouldn't be in all of these wars. We shouldn't be the world's police. We can't even take care of our own damn country, but we're out there preaching democracy to all the rest.
But at least in the 1990s and early 2000s, the US was an amazing country, right? It was safe prior to 9/11. But now you get involved in all those conflicts, right? Like Ukraine and the Palestine, Israel, and etc. But at the same time, you have this huge mess in your own country, where your own citizens are not just safe, and you do it on purpose. I have no other explanation.
Right. I think a lot of the things that we see are intentional. Sad
because they're not dumb. They're not stupid.
Right. They're not stupid. And there is a lot of money that can be made. And there's a lot of politicians that profit from war.
But how much money is enough?
Well, I mean, absolute power corrupts. And these people are corrupted. This is like a business. I think that people are so fixated on our political system without realizing that there is no political system. It's a business. And as soon as we start to realize that, the sooner we get to fix it, because it's not supposed to be a business. Politicians shouldn't be rich. Politicians should be humble servants of the people. All right? The individual citizen is their boss. Why are we taking orders from the people that we elect?
It's so twisted.
It is.
You are the employers and they are your employees.
That's exactly right. They work for us.
And you have a contract for 4 years, for instance. Mm-hmm. If you do a bad job, I'm not going to rehire you.
Right.
Next.
Right. But so how are they doing things that are intentionally destructive in their policies, especially in California, and then stay in office? How are they so comfortable creating destructive policies and not worry about the fact that there might be some constituents that aren't happy? There's something to that. And unfortunately, there's millions of dollars in this political business, and we're not serving the people that are the ones that are supposed to have the voice and the ultimate authority. Because when a government goes so far as to become destructive, that's what 1776 was all about, right? So the pen is mightier than the sword, and now is the time that we get these bureaucrats and these politicians out of office. If we want to save California, then we need to do that. And it's all hands on deck. But look, the Republican Party has enough of its own issues too.
Of course.
But these aren't Democrats. These are radical, progressive, Marxist communists. The Democratic Party has shifted so far to the left that it doesn't represent
the people.
The people. It doesn't represent what the Democratic Party used to stand for during the Kennedy administration. And so that's why, if we want balance and we want a life, if we want to be able to raise and save the money we make and be able to make sure that our children have a future, we have to stop thinking about voting all blue and start, give people a chance. Give the Republicans a chance in California. I mean, we have more registered Republicans in California than anywhere, and than anywhere in the country. So the supermajority has to be broken, and people have to be exposed for what they're doing. And I'm not going to toe the line for any party, and I'm not going to be a company yes man. If elected, there's a huge responsibility that comes with that, and making sure that your constituents are heard. I'm the only candidate in my race that's actually walking up and down the street, knocking on doors, talking to constituents. I'm not sending mailers out from my basement. I'm not refusing to debate my political opponent because I'm too afraid of getting crushed. The people, they have a right to know who they're going to send to Sacramento. They have a right to know and hear from their candidates. And what kind of system is this where, you got one candidate that's out there, working hard to connect with constituents, and another one that refuses to debate or to become politically active or engaged with the people that she wants to represent. She's not going to Sacramento because she cares about the constituents or solving problems. Unfortunately, she cares about power and money. And imagine, 12 years of the incumbent. It was 12 years. He's done nothing for this district. Nothing. Imagine 12 more years. It's 24 years of the same family that represents nothing.
It's not true. They do represent people, just the other people. And it's not true that they didn't do a thing. They did a thing. They destroyed the county.
They represent nothing. They don't even represent registered Democrats, because registered Democrats aren't happy at all. Registered Democrats, right? How many people have we seen switch to the Republican Party, right? Gloria Romero, she used to be the leader of the Democratic Party in the state. She's awesome. She actually just endorsed me, This isn't to impugn the character of my opponent. This is just about speaking truth to power and the realization that I hope so many more people have, that we have an opportunity to work together to save California, and it can't just be me. There's other really good candidates up and down the state, and we have to all work together to bring balance to Sacramento, to bring sanity back to Sacramento. We shouldn't be overtaxed. We shouldn't be overregulated. We should be able to inspire people to grow their business here in California, to stay in California, to allow their businesses to thrive. We shouldn't be creating a welfare state. We shouldn't be. We shouldn't have a budget that is, unfortunately, now in a deficit. We shouldn't be spending over $700,000 for new fancy offices for the legislature when we've got homeless veterans on the street. We shouldn't be indoctrinating children in schools. They should be learning how to read, write, do math. We shouldn't be spending money on tampon dispensers in public schools, in elementary boys' bathrooms, right? It defies logic. We shouldn't have families right now that are looking at each other going, how are we going to survive the next day? we laugh about it at times, making jokes about the new banana slug, right? But the truth is, this is tragic. The truth is that there is pain and suffering, and I don't want to see any more pain and suffering. I don't like seeing people hurt. I want people to be happy. I want them to plan for their futures. I want their children to have a bright future. Right now, we don't have that. Right now, we have chaos that's descended on our streets because of unprincipled people who care more about their allegiance to special interest groups and lobbyists. That's what they care about.
So even if I pay extra taxes by living here in California, I just want to be at least safe. Just at least safe to go outside and not to be worried to get shot outside.
What has the increase in taxes gotten us? Nothing. You're right. If we're going to be taxed into an oblivion, at least keep us safe.
At least the bare minimum.
The bare minimum. Don't create a third world country for us to live in California. But that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing. And you know, the notion that we are better off with Democrats because anything else is a threat to democracy is one of the biggest lies ever told. You know, I've got nothing to hide. I'm here. I want to answer anyone's questions, communicate with as many people as I can, reach as many people as I can, let them know that they have an option, right? What is my opponent so afraid of? Why is my opponent so secretive about? Why is my opponent not out there and being able to be as open and transparent? You know, they always talk about transparency and this. What's transparent about hiding in your basement and campaigning by sending out mailers and being a mute? You know?
But does she have all the money in the world?
She's got tons. And that's because her husband was in office and they have all the big, you know, corporate dollars and they have all the special interest groups, Planned Parenthood, you know, and you name it. And so, you know, does she have a, you know, plan for public safety? No. She has zero plan. Part of her platform in public safety on the website is to strengthen and empower neighborhood watch groups. That's not going to fix the public safety crisis. Clean air and women's health. Like, they're tone deaf. I mean, what does that mean, women's health?
To have an ability to do abortions after 8 months? Up to birth?
Yeah. I just think that we need to get California back on track because this represents a level of dysfunction that I think we've continued to see permeate in California. These people are unprincipled. They stand for nothing. They don't have political courage, and we see that. We see that when they silence people like Bill Essayli on the House floor, who is there using his voice, right, to represent his constituents. That's what they elected him to do.
Tell the story, because I believe the audience have no idea what you're talking about.
Bill Essayli, I mean, it wasn't just one thing, right? But Bill Essayli continues to get his microphone shut off when he's basically calling out the left and saying, like, what are you doing? This is not, you know, whether it's the budget, whether it's public safety. I mean, he just forced reparations. He just forced their hand when it came to reparations, right? That, you know, the reparations for to use taxpayer dollars to take from non-slave owners in an effort to correct history, to give to people that were never slaves in a state that never had slaves, right? So he forces their hand and he gets his mic shut off. He gets his mic shut off because
that's Banana Republic.
This
bro.
Banana Republic.
You shut off the mic,
right? Of a duly elected assemblyman who's there to represent his people. Right? You've got even Democrats that are registered Democrats, like Sheriff Alex Villanueva. He's one of the greatest guys I know. And he even is looking at his party going, you're not Democrats, you're radicals, right? These are radical progressives that no longer represent the party. You got people like Sheriff Chad Bianco, who is, you know, both he and Villanueva are heroes. And Sheriff Bianco has been calling this stuff out on the public safety side for years, And it's interesting to see how Tony Thurman wanted to debate him. I don't think that he thought that Sheriff Bianco would take him up on it. And you could see very clearly that Tony Thurman is just another controlled puppet for the progressive movement. And, he's sitting up there and just spouting out lies. When I was up in Sacramento and I was watching the hearing on AB 1955, which was to remove local control from school boards and to push secrets being kept from parents regarding their children, I couldn't believe how these politicians are just lying to everyone that was there. And when questions were being asked of Chris Ward, who is the author of the bill, does this keep secrets from parents? His response was, no, it doesn't. And they're just lying like it's,
little children.
Right. But in law enforcement, the term goes, if you lie, you die. Because if you lie, you're done. Your career is over. You can't lie. As a law enforcement officer, you can. But these politicians, they can't stop lying. It's oozing out of their mouth. And people are just listening to this, and most people just believe what they say.
But it comes from the top, so... I was working at McDonald's. No, you didn't.
Right.
I was at the border, sir. Yes, you were.
Yeah.
I was at the border. No, you weren't. Well, I wasn't in Europe either. So?
Right. Yeah.
Like 15 seconds ago, you said you were at the border. No,
right.
You weren't.
Right.
She has never been. I've been at the border.
Right.
And I'm nobody. But she hasn't even bothered to come to see how does it look like,
right.
The border.
Yeah, she was the border czar. Right. She never went to the border. She has no. If she rode around with Corey for 5 minutes, right? I don't think it would even have an impact on her because this is what they want. They want the chaos. She would probably go on that ride with Corey at the border and think, "This is great. This is great.
Everything's under control.
This is exactly what we wanted. This is what they want." And this is why I say, like, this country and our state can't sustain itself like this. We cannot keep going forward like this. It has to stop. It has to stop. And this is the time for us to be bold Americans and say enough. We're not going to tolerate this anymore. It's going to be interesting to see what happens between now and the election. I believe firmly that there will be disruptions because I think that the Democrat Party, realizes that they're losing.
Oh, they're losing
so bad.
Mm-hmm.
They're losing so bad. And no one, we've had in California an increase in Republican voter registration. There's been a decline in Democrat voter registration. And I think people are absolutely sick of the policies because they have no authentic policies or solutions. And you know how they get away with it? And we laugh at this, but this is how they get away with it. You can't be tough on crime. That's racist. They use that language as tactics to silence people and to prevent people from speaking out. So, because no one wants to be coined a racist. No one wants to be called something that you're not, especially, a racist, right? So they do that intentionally. So if you don't subscribe to the Democrat machine, you're a racist. And everyone else is a radical threat to democracy. That's what they do. What they call them MAGA Republican. Well, what is that? MAGA Republican, to make this country great again? That's racist? What is that? Everything that Trump said about the wall, everything he said about immigration, it's happening to the extent to which now you've got Haitians eating pets.
Allegedly.
For
the YouTube, just allegedly.
Allegedly.
Pets.
Right. Well, you got
cats, ducks.
Mm-hmm. Right, but the Constitution is dangerous. I mean, what the hell are these people talking about?
When they say all cultures are equal, that's a lie. It's not. So they have imported 20,000 Haitians, right? You can import 20,000 Lithuanians. They will not eat even a single cat.
Right. At least we have that, right? We have to base cultures based on whether they're eating cats or chopping ducks' heads off in communities. It goes way beyond that. I mean,
In Nebraska, they shot the bald eagle. Did you see that?
I did.
Bald eagle?
Yeah.
That's a
like
symbol of the America.
right. That's a crime. You know, it's a crime.
Bald
You can't. I mean, so, you know, look, at the end of the day, they're talking about, you know, the emphasis and the priority on environmental stuff is really fabricated, unfortunately. Like I was saying earlier, like I've been hearing about that since I was in elementary school, right? And you hear people like Al Gore, in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years, it's all going to come to an end. We're all going to die, right?
Flying private at the same time.
Right, flying private and, you know, ignoring the real environmental disasters which are being created by their policies. They want everything to be electric and battery operated, and they're going to tell us, like, we can't have gas-powered vehicles. You can't have a gas-powered lawnmower. You can't have, you know...
Gas stoves.
Gas stoves. Like this is what kind of a world we're creating for ourselves? Who tells us... Like, why are we giving them that much authority? How about go pound sand? How about I'm going to live my life the way I want to live my life? And if I want to have a gas-powered car, I'm going to do it. Like, how about like... if I don't want my kids to be indoctrinated or have pornography in libraries, like, that's okay to say. That's okay. And we can't lose our voice and we can't lose our grit in the process of facing evil, because that's all this is. You can't brainwash Americans into a point of being dumbed down, stupid, and voiceless. We can't do that. And unfortunately, we've given so much power and authority to these career politicians who single-handedly are destroying everything around us. We're being taxed on roads. We're being taxed on everything. We get taxed on the money we make. When there's a transaction, you're taxed. On roads that you drive on, you're taxed. I mean, how much more taxes can we get? And that's why I keep going back to, you know, the idea of taxation without representation. None of this is speaking for any of us. None of this is working for the moral fabric of our communities and our state that has been run down by extremists, and they control the media. And the truth is they are the extremists, and they're being covered by the media. So if you have a differing opinion, they're going to silence you. They're going to ban you from social media. They're going to continue to try to, right? And this is just not America. At the end of the day, we should be worried about making America great again. And that's not an extremist thing to say. I'm not supposed to say that in my race. Don't say that. Don't associate yourself with Trump or be speaking, you know, good about President Trump. I'm a realist. I'm an American. And I know that Biden has been a failure. Kamala Harris is an absolute degenerate, right? And we need to restore balance in our country and in our state. It's because of the progressive left that has gotten us here. There's only one excuse. In California, they have been in power for over 20 years. You can't blame Republicans for what's happened in California. It's the Democrats. So, you know, that's why I'm very grateful to you and for what you're doing, because you're speaking truth and you're doing it fearlessly. And that's a great example to others and hopefully inspires more to use their voice.
The question is, how do you live with all that? With all that you know, how do you live with this?
My family's worth fighting for, man. My family's worth fighting for. And I know how serious this is. Because I spent my whole life respecting the Constitution and believing in God and knowing that it's not our job to be silent. And so, whereas I medically retired and I thought, I miss my job, I miss my career, I miss my profession. I never thought that I would be in a situation like this, where now we're fighting a fight politically just to bring sanity back. But everything is on the line. And I want my children to be able to grow up in a state that I grew up in, to have the same rights, the same opportunities that I had growing up. I want that for your family. I want that for everyone in California. And when I see injustice, it kills me, right? We need justice. We need people to be held accountable. And I'm not afraid to bring accountability and justice. The people deserve it. And so it's the fight, I guess, and the love of my family and my fellow brothers and sisters that keeps me in the game.
I have this joke, so you Americans, especially you, because you run for office, you owe me safety at minimum. So I came to the US by watching the Hollywood movies, right? Safe, beautiful palm trees, beautiful women, beautiful men. Everything was great. I came here and you showed me Pomona? You owe me. I didn't subscribe for that. At least I want to feel safe. I want my wife to get my kid and just to go outside, to go on foot to the park and spend there at least an hour. And I won't be worried about maybe someone's gonna kill her, rape her, stab her, or kidnap my child.
Yeah, and that is a very real
That's all
threat.
I need.
You can't walk through a park on Holt Avenue without worrying very seriously about your safety. So you're right. At the bare minimum, you should be safe. But they can't even offer that. The Democrats they failed at everything that they touch.
So on November 5th, when people get to vote, only in area District 53, they're gonna have your last name, right?
Yeah, so that's Pomona, Ontario, Montclair, Upland. They will see me on the ballot November 5th.
The ballot is going to be big, right? With lots of names.
Yeah. Yep. Well, it'll have President Trump on there. It'll have Kamala Harris, and it'll go through every office that's up for re-election November 5th. So I'll be on there with my opponent. This is an open seat, and it'll be an interesting race to watch. We need everyone to vote. At the end of the day, my job is to stay obedient and to do the work, right? The outcome is not something I can worry about. We're gonna fight like hell to do our best to get elected. At the end of the day, though, we cannot have people being apathetic right now. We need all hands on deck, and we need people to get out and vote. Even mail your stuff in. If you can't get to a voting booth, then mail it in. And get your friends activated and get them to vote as well. Because this is the election year where we can actually effectuate change. 2024, we can do this. I think enough people are upset about what's going on and they're looking for change. I will say, it was really encouraging. And I get these emails all the time. Just yesterday, I received an email and it said, I just received the flyer for Nick Wilson for State Assembly District 53. It doesn't state if he's a Republican or a Democrat. I looked up his name and I found he's running for District 53, but it still didn't say anything about whether he's a Republican or a Democrat. I'm voting Republican, not Democrat. He sounds like he has great intentions for California, but what is he, a Democrat or Republican? And I responded back and I said, I am a Republican. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to even try and do the research or to message me. And he responded back, thank you, I'll be voting for you. And we've had so many of those emails. And even when we're going door to door and talking to constituents daily, even the Democrats are putting our yard signs in their front yard. And that's why we just ordered 3 or 4 more thousand yard signs to get them out, to remind people to vote, and let them know that they have an option. a better option than what they've had in the last 12 years.
So the last question to you: Do you think you can criticize? Do you think you can criticize the politicians if you haven't even voted?
It makes it hard, doesn't it?
Of course, you didn't do your job. Just go out
Yeah.
and vote. It doesn't matter who you vote for.
Yeah.
Then you can criticize.
Nothing is more upsetting than seeing people not vote, because that's your civic responsibility. Your civic responsibility is to vote. You really have no dog in the fight if you're just being lazy and not voting. Then you really can't complain. If you get out and vote, you can complain all you want, and you should be able to do that. But right now, I think the overarching point is get out and vote. Let's all help each other. Let's fight our way out of this mess that we're in and vote. That's how we fix this. You vote. You don't like who's representing you? Go vote. You want someone that's going to fight for you? Then vote for me. Vote for Nick Wilson. I'm going to put principles over politics, and I'm going to fight like hell for you.
God bless.
God bless you.